your soul group? Could you have soul groups, soul families? It gets real.
I mean, yeah, we could talk about those.
Okay.
We could talk about the soul group.
So,
excuse me.
A soul group, right, can be groups of entities. And when I say entities, I'm talking about fractals of souls or souls that have agreements to incarnate in certain lifetimes or a lifetime, and they have assignments towards each other or for each other in that lifetime. It's like and even though we remember when we say things and we give dates like, you know, anywhere from 1 year to 20 years, right. that's just a spectrum. Right. It could be more than that. Like one person could actually be a grandparent, and you got the newborn that lives from birth to like 5 right. or birth to like 10, and that grandparent impacts that person just in the right way to give them the stimulus that they need to move forward in life as that person transitions. Right. But they were somebody or a soul that they had an agreement is like, listen, I'm going to be here. I'm going to set this, make a path. So when you get here, I'm going to impart these things to you. Right. And I'll always be there for you. Exactly. So in that always being there for that person, you remember, man, I know I was young, but I remember my grandfather, and I really loved that man. Right. Yeah. Well, how old were you? Well, I was just 5. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, man. I just remember the things he taught me. And that memory is what keeps that person going to be the best version of themselves in life. Right. Exactly. That's a part of a soul group. And then you have other assignments, or we would say sacred contracts. That's another word that you might hear in spiritual circles. Sacred agreements, like we have sacred contracts. Right. You know, our wives, our extended friends, those that were part of our assembly, we had sacred agreements with these people that were supposed to last to a certain point in time or for the rest of our lives or rest of this incarnation. Exactly. So that's one way soul groups work. Another thing of another manifestation of a soul group could be actual tribes and nations of people. Right. That things they as a collective go through together.
I think you should expand on that one a little bit more, because I think that one is it's more pervasive, and it's I think that it's more recognizable for people. Who
I was gonna say quantify what you mean so I could.
So for an example, right? We've had discussions about, let's just say the people of color. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. There is a certain experience that people of color are. They just haven't escaped from it at this point in time. Okay. And then you got people, that are not people of color.
Okay. All right. So. Wow, you had to load me up. That's right there. One, it's heavy, but I pray that the Most High give me the right words to articulate this to touch whoever's watching. And I want to say speak very carefully, because I know what I'm saying is not the end all be all to what I'm about to say, but it's just it's what's been given to me. Right. So a lot of things that we're dealing with now goes back to in eons of time. Right. In the physical realm anyway. But it's spiritual things that's happening that's playing out in the physical realm. So I'm just gonna keep it in the paradigm that you say. People of color, right? The soul is not restricted to one type of body. That's first and foremost. Right. And I gotta speak a little vague while being a little accurate. That's a paradox. Fourth principle. So you have people that govern this planet at one point in time. We're not going to go into what they look like. We're just going to say people that govern this earth at one point in time. Right. Entities, beings, angelic beings, and so on. In other realms that we would consider different planes of existences could be accessed at will, know. And I know it's gonna be all types of people watching this. Whenever this gets out to whoever it needs to,
I'll give you a term for that.
Go ahead.
the corporal and the non-corporal.
Yes. And one could even say etheric, which is a mixture of both.
Yes.
So this world actually existed etherically or spiritually in thought and mind, then etherically, and then more physically.
Right.
And as we get more, if you say descend in vibration or become more solid, then different realms that have to maintain what we call etheric and spirituality, they started to fade from the existence, from physical existence, because the nature and character of the consciousness fell.
Right.
So it was decided by higher powers to separate the realms. So you had initial groups that were here that governed things. All the while, other souls have been coming and going to this planet to help. Right? And at some point in the annals of time, we call it the fall. We call it a war in heaven. We call it all these different things. Or we could just say it was a fall in consciousness, that other entities started coming that had other experiences in polarity, and they brought those experiences here. And the beings that were here were susceptible to the influences of these other beings, which started a real schism in more of I don't even know equanimity. This is a real word, but equanimity. Everything was in equanimity, balance. Hey, I'm gonna make up words, and if you understand what I'm saying, it's a real word.
It's a real word.
So the equanimity was disrupted, and it caused more catalyst. Mm-hmm. So think about it like this: if you knew everything was taken care of and you were good, would you strive to be better?
No, you wouldn't. It would be no need to.
It would be no need to.
Right.
So everything was amped up, so to speak.
But isn't everything good?
Everything was amped up. Cain, yes.
Yes.
So these entities or energies were brought here to increase the catalyst. So what you have is certain states of consciousness and awarenesses that are influencing something else. As we would say, love, light, and negativity started to become more polarized.
Right.
Yeah.
And it started manifesting in people.
Right.
As we see them now, but we are descendants of different groups of people. So what happened is, let's just say these short people were invaded by these tall people, right? Mm-hmm. And these short people were subjugated by the tall people. And in the subjugation, the tall people flourished. And the short people started having a lot of hate or anger about it. Now, I'm going to give you an understanding of divine karma or karma, action. As these people started dying off, the short people's souls, in order to get balance for that hatred that they have, they would start manifesting in the birth cycles of the tall people.
Right.
So in time, you have souls that were the short people that were the tall people subjugating the short people.
Right.
And you had the tall people, when they started passing on, they were evolving as souls as the short people. So all souls get to experience the exact same thing that they inflicted on somebody else.
Right.
And it's somewhere along the line that you have to decide not to hate, whether they're tall or whether they're short. We're just people.
Which, if you bring that to the material side, right, you reap whatever you sow.
You reap whatever you sow,
right,
in this life or the next, and it's not a punishment.
So that means that, you know, before anything happens in this realm, it's already transpired in the spiritual realm,
which goes to soul groups and soul ties and decisions and choices and planning that's made in the spiritual realm to play out in this physical realm.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's different ways to conceptualize that. We're just giving it in a story form.
Right.
So going back to your initial question, and I'm sorry if the buildup was long-winded, we descend from people that had certain guidelines or certain what's the word I'm looking at? Proclivity. Proclivity is a word, brother. Look it up. But look up the definition and read it.
Okay.
I know it's a good one. That's what I'm saying. Look at the definition. We had certain proclivity, and we had certain what's the word they use in the scripture? Mashal. governance of the planet.
Right.
And we allowed things to happen on this planet that caused imbalance.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So from that allowance of things to happen, now we have to balance it. We're in a karmatic cycle of death and rebirth.
Right.
Or karma. Right. So we can work out our dharma, which is when you work out things that are, they would say, positive. Mm-hmm. But these are the things that you do that you really realize you don't have to come back and do that anymore.
Right. Exactly.
So it's playing out as souls becoming what we consider people that look like us.
Right.
And people that look like other people. But really, we've actually been in both roles.
Exactly.
At some point in time.
Right. So with saying that,
mm-hmm.
somebody in your soul family
mm-hmm.
could be, let's say, a Caucasian person.
Absolutely.
And they're in your soul family right now.
Absolutely.
Right. And you do now. I don't want them to get it messed up. Like that's how it automatically is.
No,
because some souls want to experience just being.
They stay in the same bloodline
or what have you.
Some people say my ancestors.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So, but not getting away from
the lesson
that you're supposed to keep while you're here.
Right.
Because like you said, that person that may have called you out your name, he may be in your soul circle.
Right.
Just giving karmatic issues back so you can learn
work that out.
They can learn.
Yes, absolutely.
So
that's where the term proclivity comes into play.
Go ahead. Talk to me.
Because basically what happens is you have a certain inclination or a certain tendency towards a specified behavioral pattern.
Right.
Got you.
Right. So, we call those predispositions.
Right.
Right. So let's say like I don't know, you like to play video games a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that could have been very pervasive in this soul group.
Right.
So the next one might have a tendency to play video games,
mm-hmm.
and the next one might have a tendency to play video games.
Right.
So in something that we call the scriptures, it talks about curses.
Yeah.
But curses, you have different understandings of different schools of thought.
Yeah.
Curses could be perceived as a pattern behavior that is non-productive or miscreating in your life. We talk about trying to create for the highest good of yourself and the highest good of all those who are connected to you. And if you move away from that, you miscreate.
And see, man, come on. And that's again, man, like begets like.
Yes.
That is the rhythm of the soul.
Right.
Right. Everything begets of itself.
Own kind. Yes.
Of its own kind.
Yes.
Right. That is an established, undeviating principle. It doesn't matter race, creed. It doesn't matter none of that.
Right.
Right. What you put in what you put in the earth, or what you
put an apple seed in the earth, it's gonna grow an apple tree.
100%, because that is the divine order.
That's the divine order.
And what we sometimes gloss over is that you don't necessarily escape the provisions of being attached to divine order.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Your awareness may suffer a gap.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the factual basis is that you are that.
Yes.
You are both sides of divine order.
Yes.
Right. And how you conceptualize that,
mm-hmm.
either through the negative polarity or the positive polarity,
mm-hmm.
right? You still gonna learn today.
Right.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Give me a sec. I got crazy energy in here.
That's the thing, man.
So going back to the analogy of the short people and the tall people, one could say, well, these tall people came from somewhere else and they subjugated these short people, and they ruled like out of fear.
Right.
Where the tall people only knew how to govern out of love.
Right.
I said the short people only knew how to govern out of love. So over time, it became a patternized behavior, and also the mingling and the subjugation caused these people to shift and started hating. So in the cycle of life and birth, and it's trying to balance these out, because now, remember what I said, everything shifts to polarity, a right way and a wrong way. So one would say the tall people were so evil.
Right.
And the short people, these people didn't deserve that.
Right.
But what happens when that same soul comes back as a tall person, and because they haven't healed in a certain type of way, and they carried over that feeling into the spiritual realm, they're like, man, I need to go back and make that right.
So let's take that point right there, right, and tie that into the concept of death.
Okay.
Because during let's say prior to the point of transition, right? You hold on to these things.
Yes.
You don't let them go.
You don't let them go.
Exactly. So, these are probably good indicators that you have to repeat the cycle.
Right.